Mr. Speaker, I'll just take a minute to just inform the honorable member that just spoke that she is missing the marker. Missing the marker in that indicating that the, the increases in salary that the people at the lower end is getting 2,000, the people at the higher end is getting 5,000. Mr. Speaker, it's the other way around. Employees at the lower end will be getting 7.5%, which is to the minimum is 4,500. This 4,500 will be non-taxable. This will be non-taxable in 2018, and going forward in 2019, it will be non-taxable. For those earning $1 million Guyana dollars, Mr. Speaker, is 0.5%, and that works out to 5,000. Because of the tax waiver of 2018, it will be non-taxable. But come 2019, it will be taxable, and so it will reduce to 2,000. So people at the higher level of the income bracket will be receiving 2,000 Guyana dollars, while the people at the lower income bracket will continue to receive 4,500, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion for the approval of the estimate of public sector and the budget for the fiscal year 2019, moved by the Honorable Minister Winston Jordan, Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, for me, Budget 2019 is more than just the largest budget ever, the first to cross the 300 billion mark, and the third of the fifth national budget to be presented to this August Assembly before the start of the financial year, within 3.5 years of this administration first term in government. This is quite an achievement and would not have been possible without the hard work and dedication of the staff of the ministry, region, and agencies, and most definitely the team at the Ministry of Finance under the astute guidance of the Honorable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, for me, Budget 2019 presents the crowning achievement of this APNU plus AFC government. It is the icing on the cake, as is reflected in the theme of Budget 2019, transforming the economy, empowering people, building sustainable community for the good life. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2019 caters for each stratum of society with measures to address our most vulnerable in society, our children aged 0 to 14 that makes up 30% of our country's population, our youths, young people aged 18 to 35 years that constitute the significant resources, persons with disability, our elderly, our indigenous people, by crafting a budget with programs that cater for the education, health protection, and provide business and investment opportunity for sustainable, holistic development. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2019 also caters for the strata business community with favorable tax measures that would stimulate growth and create employment opportunity for all. Mr. Speaker, while tax revenue are projected to increase by approximately 12% in 2019, this is not because of new tax measures, but because of improvement in tax administration and reform achieved in 2018. The overall increase in tax revenue will be greatly driven by growth in income, value added, and excise tax. Income tax are anticipated to rise on account of a variety of factors. The recent increase in salary will garner higher income taxes from individuals. The amnesty program has provided the Guyana Revenue Authority with information that will allow them to get better handle of the thousands of taxpayers. Court cases with some companies are expected to increase company taxes, while subsidiaries in oil industry, which are coming on board in 2019, will be driving higher withholding taxes. With regards to value-added and excise taxes, there are a number of initiatives undertaken by government that are anticipated to continue bearing fruit in 2019. The Large Taxpayers Unit, the LTU, which was established in 2017, an oil and gas unit within the LTU to be established in 2019 will also be driving the increase in this category as efforts continue to be dedicated to ensuring the appropriate revenue are paid by these respective groups. Prior to early 2018, containers was assessed by custom officer who was to estimate the content of these containers. The acquisition of the scanner, as well as the growth in import goods, is anticipated to also contribute to the expansion in value-added and excise tax, with the former growing for a better assessment of the content of the container. With regards to the growth in taxation outstripping growth in the economy, it is important to note that this comparison is not valid, as one growth rate is in nominal terms and the other is in real terms. Additionally, it's important to note that the overall tax rate will decrease in 2019. Therefore, it is not clear what such an organization like the GCCI position is on this issue. Should government not improve tax administration to create a level playing field? Additionally, Guyana tax revenue in 2019 is expected to be 26.9% of nominal GDP, which is well below the OECD average of 34.3% in 2016. Mr. Speaker, as a rebuttal of the Honorable Irfan Ali presentation, I would like to state that any economist worth his or her salt would be able to look at Appendix 4, Urban Consumer Price Index of the budget speech, and will tell that the price of a typical basket of goods and services consumed increased by 3% between December 2014 and October 2018. At the same time, the public sector minimum wages had increased to over 50% and pension by over 40%. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that someone should have paid more attention at university, as this would have saved me from having to explain basic economic principles to this honorable House. Or perhaps this member was too busy creating his own illusion and didn't look at Appendix 4. Mr. Speaker, Appendix 4, it is clear that price of food is expected to increase by 3.4% at the end of December when compared with December 2017, and not 4.6% as this House was told. The House was similarly misled over the price of clothing, medical, and personal care by the honorable member. What is worse, Mr. Speaker, is that the trained economist, someone who aspires to lead this country, look at these percentage changes and sum them to come up with a whopping 14% increase in household expenditure. Mr. Speaker, any grade 6 student could have told this honorable member that this is incorrect. If the price of bread, rice, sugar increased by 1, 2, 3% respectively, this does not mean that the household income has to spend 6% more on these items. If a household spends $100, I'm breaking it down simple for you, honorable member. If a household spends $100 on each of these items, then the price of bread increased by $101, price for rice increased by $102, price for sugar increased by $103. Instead of spending $300 on these items, as you was suggested, the household will now spend $306. So it's $6 increase, which is 2% and not 6% increase. It painted a picture of the economy. The honorable member said timber production fell by 30.9% between 2014 and 2017, causing export revenue from timber production to reduce by US dollars 20.2 million. Mr. Speaker, the timber production actually declined by 17.7 million, not the 2.2 million. The sweet lies that we were being told, Mr. Speaker. The honorable member did not mention. The honorable member did not mention export earnings from gold and other export increased by 347.7 million US dollars and 48.3 million respectively from 2014 to 2017. In 2018, gold and other export revenue will increase 293.3 million US dollars and 51.9 million US dollars respectively from 2014 position. Total export earnings will increase from 1,167.2 million United States dollars in 2014 to 1,392.1 million in 2018, a 224.9 million US increase. In 2019, total export revenue will increase by 282.4 million US dollars from the 2014 position, Mr. Speaker. Net foreign reserve is forecasted at 476.5 million US dollars at the end of 2018 and not the 388 million US dollars as stated by the honorable member Ali, a 28.4% decline. Sweet lies, Mr. Speaker. The overall balance of payment deficit is projected to increase from 79.7 million budgeted in 2018 to 180.7 million United States dollars. This represents an increase of 101 million United States dollars to 180.7 million US dollars and not an increase of 180.7 million as mentioned by the Honorable Minister Sweet Lies. Mr. Speaker, the current account deficit is projected to increase by 292.6 million US budgeted in 2018 to 463.8 million US. This represents an increase of 171.2 million US dollars to 463.8 million United States dollars, and not an increase of 463.8 million as mentioned by the Honorable Minister, the Honorable Member, Sweet Lies. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member, Sweet Lie Ali, as I will refer to him, did not mention capital account surplus has increased from 210 million United States dollars in 2014 to 228 million United States dollars in 2017. This represents 17.9 million United States dollars increase. The capital account will continue to increase by 72.9 million United States dollars and 168 million United States dollars 2018 and 2019 respectively from the 2014 position. 70.1 million United States dollar increase on budget 2018. I hope the honorable member, Mr. Speaker, is taking note of these figures. Mr. Speaker, to disclaim the sweet lies that this administration expended more on dietary than infrastructure, as the honorable member indicated so glaringly that this administration spent more on dietary than infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, over the years 2010 to 2014, 19.2 billion was expended on maintenance of road, bridges, drainage, and irrigation, sea defenses, and other infrastructure by the previous government. This amount is 32.9% or 4.7 billion higher than the amount of 14.4 billion spent on dietary over the same period under the APNU plus AFC government. Yes. So these sweet lies must be stopped peddling, Mr. Speaker. This administration has improved the allocation to maintenance of road, bridges, drainage, and irrigation, sea defense, river defense, and other infrastructure. So much so, Mr. Speaker, that in 2015 to 2019 budget, the allocation is 41.1 billion, more than double what the previous administration spent in 2010 to 2014 of 19.2 billion, Mr. Speaker. I hope the Honorable Sweetlight Ali is taking note, Mr. Speaker. Further, 41.1 billion on road, bridges, sea defense, etc. is 78% higher than the amount spent on dietary from 2015 to 2019, which was in this administration 23.1 billion. Mr. Speaker, I hope the honorable member stops peddling these untruth. Mr. Speaker, dietary, if the honorable member should know what dietary consists of, I will enlighten the honorable member. Mr. Speaker, dietary consists of meals for the students in our dormitories, the school feeding program, hot meal provided by our hinterland children in schools and patients in our hospital, to whom we strive to deliver quality health care, to our military and police force in the field and on operations. This year, Mr. Speaker, the allocation for dietary has increased approximately by $1 billion, of which 799 million relates to increase in the quality and quantity of dietary needed for our expanded school feeding program and meals to our students in the dorms. I don't know if the opposition is asking us to cut this, Mr. Speaker. This is what exactly they're saying. Mr. Speaker, to give a brief summary of the Ministry of Finance budget, in 2018, budget allocated to the Ministry of Finance was 28.3 billion, of which 6.2 billion, or 22%, was allocated to other employment costs, 6141, which cater for increased salaries, new recruits, and promotion within the public service. In 2019, Mr. Speaker, 2019 budget, this amount increased 85% to reach 11.6 billion and accounts for 32.1% of the total ministry budget. Statutory pension and gratuity, chart of accounts 6-13, amounted to 4.7 billion, 5% over 4.4 billion in 2018. Pension increase, Mr. Speaker, chart of account 6342 was budgeted at 3.9 billion in 2019, 70% higher than the 3.3 billion in 2018. Capital expenditure, Mr. Speaker, for Ministry of Finance, total 5 billion, 12.4% above 2018. This increase caters for higher investment through the Basic Need Program by 42.1% under the ninth cycle of the program, which runs 2018-2020. The program earmarked for implementation are 11 solar PV projects for schools and early childhood education centers, construction of processing facility at Essequibo, upgrade of water distribution system in areas including Fly Hill, Shulinab, Oweta, Ruperti, and Araputa. Fisheries development projected slated for Victoria and surrounding fishing community. More than 10 other interventions to improve livelihood to targeted groups in areas, heavy duty operators, solar PV installation maintenance, boat building, garment construction, small engine repairs such as ATV, outboard engine, brush cutters, bakery, hollow block making, and a medium-scale poultry production for Matakai Region 1. Also, Mr. Speaker, 90.3 million is budgeted in 2019 to cater for the Statistical Bureau to support collection of statistical data to record and measure oil and gas production in the national accounts and institution strengthening of the national statistical system. Mr. Speaker, Major highlights for 2019. Major highlights of 2019 Region 4, Mr. Speaker. Capital budget of 601.6 million has been approved. Major activity for 2019 are as follows. Construction of 3 timber revetment and 1 mini sluice, 4.3 million. Construction of 2 bridges, 1 heavy-duty concrete and 1 footpath, and 2 culverts, 22.1 million. Construction of 2 roads and upgrading of 4 roads, 81.1 million. Major rehabilitation to Bladen Hall Multilateral School, 70 million. Extension to the new Diamond Grove Primary School, 58 million. Major rehabilitation to Friendship Secondary School, 25 million. And construction of teacher duplex living quarter at St. Cuthbert Mission, 14 million. Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to note that under this administration, which have under its belt, Mr. Speaker, 2 consecutive local government elections, second to none in any existing administration, that this administration would provide a budget for the regions totaling 44.7 billion, Mr. Speaker. 44.7 billion to the region. Guess what? Region 4 that voted overwhelmingly for this APNUFC government, Mr. Speaker, and the NDCs and municipalities, they got 7.2 billion, or 16.1% of the total budget. Region 6 gets 7.7 billion, Mr. Speaker, 17.1% of the total budget. Region 3, 6.3 billion, or 14.1% of the budget. Region 10 again voted overwhelmingly for this administration, got 3.9 billion, or 8.7% of the total budget. What this is saying, Mr. Speaker, that this is not a vindictive government. Mr. Speaker, in opposition, we sat here in the opposition, and regions that were controlled by the opposition chairmanship, even Region 4, they didn't give the regional chairman a vehicle. They didn't give the chairman of Region 8, Maria, a typewriter versus a computer to do letters, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when this budget was being read and presented, I saw the leader of the opposition smiling and laughing and saying, we want this NDC, we want this. He was surprised that we are giving to NDC's municipality that they won. He was surprised. But this is how this administration works, Mr. Speaker. We are fair in how we will distribute the wealth of this country without victimization for members of the community, because this government have to build this country every single region by region, step by step, every single community. And Mr. Speaker, you will agree with me when I say God bless the Corporate Republic of Guyana.
Yes, I agree.
With an abundance of natural resources and now black gold, oil, as ExxonMobil announced on Monday that it has made its 10th discovery at Pluma One offshore Guyana, and increased its estimate of recoverable resources from the Stabroek Block to more than 5 billion equivalent barrels, and pushes Guyana figure to 750,000 barrels of oil daily by 2025. Mr. Speaker, by my calculation, this would bring to the coffers about 438 billion Guyana dollars per annum, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Liza Phase 1 development is expected to begin producing up to 120 barrels of oil per day by early 2020, utilizing Liza Destiny FPSO, which would bring in our first projected oil revenue inflow, which I calculated to be about 70 billion Guyanas per annum, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Liza Phase 2 is expected to start up by mid-2022 and will use a second FPSO designed to produce up to 220,000 barrels per day. And yet a third development, Piara, which is expected to start up in 2023, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is what the opposition is fearful of. If this should manifest itself, there's no way there will be a change in government, and this is the pure facts, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I would like to restate what is said by many times over. Guyana is well poised to truly forge ahead in the 21st century as a petrol development state. These new resources would provide our APNU plus AFC government with the opportunity to shift our development path. Our government is committed to pursuing economic and social policy conducive to equitable, sustainable, and environmentally friendly growth, modernize our economy, and with rapid economic expansion, improving the people's life in the short term, while simultaneously providing the foundation to allow us to transition to the medium and long term to a post-carbon economy that would transform the life of all citizens of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2019 is doing this. It's commencing. If you could have a 300.7 billion when there's no oil, you could imagine 2020 what will happen. In putting together the figures for Budget 2019, of course, our ministries, regions, and agency actually asks for double this amount, but because of fiscal constraint, they could only be given this amount. We must credit this possibility to the Guyana Revenue Authority through their diligence and collected more that we were able to present a budget of this large figure of 300.7 billion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is no ordinary achievement of this APNU AFC government. And I believe that the opposition will be hard-pressed when they put the no confidence motion to debate these achievements in this 3.5-year-old government. When they match this against the 23 years of their administration and what they had produced in those 23 years. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, let me go on record by saying this member of parliament, Jaipaul Sharma, would never support the no confidence motion. That whenever it's debated in this house, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to say once more that God bless Guyana and long live our President David Arthur Granger.